Good morning, everybody. I'm Barry with BearIndependent.com. You probably know that already. We're going to do the brief this morning, but before we do, a brief word. Bear with me one moment. Many of you all know that we are Grindstone Ministries. Grindstone Ministries is a construction ministry, and we do disaster relief. And Grindstone is building, literally and figuratively, Caleb House, which is our restoration facility for juvenile human trafficking survivors and victims of sex crimes. We don't have Caleb House built yet, but we have dozens of people in our care already, because the Father has seen fit to give us people before he gave us a building, and that's fine. He who can be trusted with little can be trusted with much. And dozens of survivors, dozens of witnesses is not a little. So praise Yah that he has seen fit to entrust us with this. In the course of doing our work at Caleb House, yesterday I was in Douglas County, Missouri. And I intended to get some coffee at a local coffee shop. And we weren't welcome. I find that incredibly interesting. You may hear in the near future some slander, some Lashon Hara about me, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm fine with that, because the enemy uses deceit and lies and destruction, and I'm fine with that. It's not even power. It's not even soft power. It's certainly not hard power, which we're better at. So before we get into the brief, I just want to read a little bit of Romans 11. Shaul of Tarsus, the Apostle Paul. I say then that Elohim has rejected his people. Let it not be, for I am also of Israel, the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Elohim has not rejected his people. His people. No pastor, priest, rabbi, his people, whom he knew beforehand. Or do you not know that the scripture says of Eliyahu, Elijah, how he pleads with Elohim against Israel, saying, Yahuwah, they have killed your prophets and overthrown your slaughter places, and I alone am left, and they seek my life. But what does the answer of Elohim say to him? I have left for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal, who have not fallen into false doctrine, bad teachings. So therefore also at this present time a remnant according to the choice of favor has come to be. And if by favor it is no longer of works, otherwise favor is no longer favor, grace. And if it is of works, it is no longer grace, otherwise work is no longer work. What then? Israel has not obtained what it seeks, but the chosen did obtain it, and the rest were hardened. As it has been written, Yahuwah has given them a spirit of deep sleep, eyes not to see and ears not to hear until this day. David also says, let their table become for a snare and for a trap and for a stumbling block and recompense to them. Let their eyes be darkened not to see and bow down their backs always. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Let it not be. But by their fall deliverance has come to the nations to provoke them to jealousy. And if their fall is riches for the world, and their failure riches for the nations, how much more their completeness? For I speak to you, the nations, inasmuch as I am an emissary to the nations, I esteem my service, if somehow I might provoke to jealousy those who are of my flesh and save some of them. For if their casting away is the restoration to favor of the world, what is their acceptance but life from the dead? Now if the first fruit is set apart, the lump is also, and if the root is set apart, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, have been grafted in amongst them, and came to share the root and fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. And if you boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. You shall say then, the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Good. By unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. Do not be arrogant, but fear Elohim. For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. Now, some of y'all will be familiar with the fact that the first job I ever had outside of working on a homestead was cutting trees. I've cut a lot of effing branches in my life. And I'd just like to say, I am in no way afraid of you, not even a little bit. And praise Yah, we have fail-safes for our fail-safes for our fail-safes. And the best disinfectant is sunshine. So if you want to go full disclosure, I'm happy to put together a 4-hour PowerPoint presentation. Let's party. Axes are good for limbing. Now, Bear Independent Brief 31, August 22. Taxpayers may be on the hook for something like $500 billion for Biden's student loan debt cancellation plan announced last Wednesday. For those making less than $125,000 annually, $10,000 in debt will be waived, and those who received the Pell Grant will receive twice that. The Deputy Director of the National Economic Council, Bharat Rahamurthy, claimed, quote, "It is paid for and far more by the amounts of deficit reduction that we have already have on track for this year. We're on track for $1.7 trillion in deficit reduction this year, and we're using a portion of that, a very small portion, to provide relief to the middle-class families consistent with the president's plan," end quote. The University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business created a budget model that showed a $330 billion addition to the deficit over the next decade from the student loan handout alone. That would mean that the average taxpayer's bill would equate to roughly $2,085 each. But even that's a conservative estimate compared to the $440 to $600 billion estimated by the Committee for a Responsible Budget. And they suspect that tax hikes will be the solution for the payback. In other words, F your deficit, it's not going to work. Taxpayers are going to pay at a minimum $2,000 per household, per taxpayer, for this student loan debt relief, probably more, because that $2,000 is figured off the cost of $330 billion. But the actual cost is estimated to be at a minimum $440 to $600 billion. So maybe double that, maybe $4,000 per taxpayer. Of course, this announcement has been expected for some time, especially with the midterm elections coming up. Dave Ramsey, American personal finance personality and businessman, noted that he believed that this was, quote, "an obvious political ploy when this presidency, from an economic standpoint, is the greatest failure since Jimmy Carter," end quote. Some are concerned that this manipulation of the market will ultimately cause tuition rates to rise even higher. Michael Ashton, managing principal at Enduring Investments, told Fox News, quote, "When the government sprays money at something, that something tends to become more expensive, and I think just as a general rule," end quote. Now, let's pontificate for a moment. First of all, as an American taxpayer, I don't care about your pseudo degree in underwater basket weaving. There's a Torah for this. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. You signed that loan. That's your loan, not my loan. I don't give a shit about your student loan debt. And you don't get to complain about it because you agreed to it. You made a contract. You made a covenant. And if you broke that covenant, frankly, shame on you. My pastor loves to say, actions have consequences. Choose wisely. And I agree with that. So let your yes be yes and your no be no. Not my job to pay off your debt. What other debts are we going to pay off next? Who else's debt, as an American small business owner, am I on the hook to pay off? And if I wanted to do that, There's actually a Torah, there's an instruction for that in the Old Testament, how to do that on an individual basis. It's not the government's job to pay off the debt of anybody for anything. Not their job. And I don't believe the president has the authority to do that. But as we've seen for, I don't know, the last 100+ years or so, 150 years, the president does a lot of stuff that he doesn't have the authority to do, and we just take it. The American taxpayer just takes it. Well, I guess that's the way it is now. This is obviously a political ploy, and to my mind, an indicator of further decline of the legitimacy of the American empire. We're going to pay that debt with more fiat currency. It will 100% increase inflation, to say nothing of increasing the tax burden. Have you noticed that this administration is really gung-ho about increasing the tax burden? You want to talk about the middle class? Well, who's going to pay that tax burden? It's not the richest 1%. That's the dumbest shit in the world. The reason for that is because when people accrue that much money, they don't get there by accident. Even if they're scumbags, they don't get there by accident. They do have some economic prowess. They do have some smarts in their brain, and they hire people, expensive people, talented people, to run their money. See, when you're poor, you work for your money. When you're rich, your money works for you. That's a mindset thing, something I would encourage everybody to figure out. And when you're rich, when you have a lot of liquidity, when you have money, you pay somebody else to make damn sure it is their full-time job. It may be an entire firm's full-time job to make sure that you pay 4% in taxes instead of 40%. There's lots of moves for that. I had a CPA tell me one time, like, the 87,000 page tax code, like 500 pages of it is what you're supposed to do, and the other 86,500 pages of it is how to get around it and how not to do it. Well, when you have money to deploy against that problem, you have people that know all 87,000 pages, and the rich don't pay taxes, and that's why. So you could blame the rich. Seems a little communist, if you ask me. You could blame the rich, even if they are assholes, even if you don't agree with them ideologically. That's fine. You could blame the rich. They're not paying it anyway. Maybe blame the IRS and yet again the broken federal government. Just saying. Now, as this squeeze continues on the middle class, you add in the fact that food scarcity is becoming real in the United States of America. Energy costs are going through the roof. For some reason, people can't find jobs, even though we have the strongest economy ever. And there's millions of open positions. People aren't working. We've talked about the riots that we saw at the beginning of COVID, where people were punching each other, stabbing each other, and shooting each other over toilet paper and gas cans. What happens when that's bread, eggs, milk? How does that work? How many more people, rightly or unrightly, justly or unjustly, have signed up for WIC in the last few months? What's that going to do to the tax base? What's that going to do to the cost-benefit analysis, the P&L, profit and loss statement for the federal government? Oh, well, that's run on a state-by-state basis. Where does the state get its money from to do that? Circling the drain. Back to the brief. The student loan debt relief, may face legal issues before the midterms. Florida Senator Marco Rubio called the handout illegal, saying that the president does not have the authority to do this, and that it is unfair to have people who have paid for their own loans to now also have to pay for the loans of others. I agree with that. Others have criticized the move by saying that instead of targeting a small group of voluntary debtors, yeah, you signed on the dotted line, you agreed to this, voluntary debtors, Proverbs 22, is it? The rich rule over the poor, and a debtor is a slave to his debt. I get this question all the time with preparedness. Should I pay off my debt or buy more preps? If you pay off your debt, you'll have more money to buy more preps with. I honestly think, I genuinely believe that this society that we have devolves to the point where debtors' prisons become a thing again. And people say, well, it's unsecured debt. They can't take my house. They can't take my truck. They can't take my boat. It's unsecured debt. You signed for it. After the last couple, 3 years, you're going to tell me they give a damn about human life? They give a damn about your rights? You're going behind bars in a shiny pair of bracelets, homie. You get to go work off your debt. Fun times. We're going to have to find a new Australia to put all these people. I don't know.
It's more like the debtor's prison has people entrapped in their minds. Like, I can't do this because I have to go work to pay for this, to make this happen. So to make this happen, I gotta buy gas, I gotta get a new car so I could go to work. Their entire life is that circle that you're talking about, where they're not living life, they're just living to pay off debt.
Hamster wheel.
Yep.
Just running on the hamster wheel.
And they keep putting themselves further and further into debt.
You know what's fun? It doesn't matter what time of day we do the brief. That plane only does that when we're doing the brief. SIGINT. Morning, gentlemen. Best of luck. We're right here. You could come see us. Like, we're right here. I'm not hard to find. If you find us, you'll find a bunch of men with guns, though, which is probably why they're on an airplane.
Yep.
Like, oh, we don't want to go down there.
But yeah, that's a major point that you always bring up. If you eliminate your debt, you then become free. You get out of that mental debtor's prison so that you can do the things that will be good for you, your health, and your family's well-being.
Yeah, and not be a slave to the debt. The rich rule over the poor because money it's an asset. You can use it. It's not the money that has inherent value. We know this about fiat currency. It's a rectangular piece of green paper with a dead guy's face on it. That has no value. It's the exchange of that money for tangible physical assets that has value, and also the ability to use that to exert influence and coercion. Money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. And so the rich rule over the poor because they have the assets, the ability, the capability to do that, and also because there's a shift in mindset. The poor are going to run on that hamster wheel. The rich make more hamster wheels. Is it a broken, busted system? Yeah, I don't love it at all. That's why I don't play in it. I don't give a damn about hamster wheels. I got off the hamster wheel, started several of my own businesses. And you know what I did with those businesses? I didn't make them hamster wheels because I don't want other people running on the hamster wheel either. As far as this being fair, Rubio's saying that it's unfair to have people who paid for their own loans to now also have to pay for the loans of others. I agree with that. But some people are saying, some good believers in Jesus are saying, well, it's unfair to not forgive this debt. It's compassionate. It's the right thing to do. Well, I got news for you, sweetheart. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, never taught anything that was counter to the Old Testament. If he did, he wouldn't be the prophesied Mashiach, the Messiah, right? And you're clearly directed in the Old Testament, don't fear that person. If they're saying stuff that's not in the Torah, don't fear that person. That person's a false prophet. Kill them. Wow, that's pretty extreme, right? Yeah, 1 Peter 2:21. For this you were called, that Messiah, having suffered for your sins, that you might walk in his steps, that in him there is no sin. 1 John 3 verse 4, lawlessness. There's no lawlessness in him, and no deceit was found in his mouth. He didn't say anything against the Torah of the prophets. And the Torah says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. The Torah says that a debtor is a slave to their debt. It's perfectly clear. You can lend to all nations, but you do not borrow. But what about the love of Jesus? The way he loves you is by showing you how to walk your life out. Not putting his stamp of approval on all your pagan Babylonian bullshit. That's not love. When my kids are out of line, I don't just love them in the moment. You know, love the sinner, hate the sin, fix the sin. Shall we sin all the more so that grace may abound? No. Yah forbid. Shall we continue to be bad simply because we're covered by the blood of Messiah? No. God forbid. It's not compassionate. Enabling people is not compassionate, because at the end of the day, our goal as individuals and as parents and as members of healthy communities should be to create strong human beings. And enabling people doesn't make them strong. Coercing people doesn't make them strong. It keeps them stuck where they are on the hamster wheel. If they never have to go through those difficult experiences, they never grow stronger. They stay on the hamster wheel. And then you have to fix that problem for them again and again and again and again and again. So like when you go to the gym, the first time you pick up heavy weights, it's difficult and you hurt the next day. Oh, it was painful in the moment. Well, stop trading temporary comfort for your long-term growth, right? Well, you're never going to grow. You're never going to get stronger if you never get uncomfortable lifting the heavy weights. And the more you lift the heavy weights, the better you get at it. Now you can lift heavier and heavier weights, or you can lift for longer periods of time. You have to lift heavier weights just to get your heart rate up to get a PT session in, because you become conditioned to bear that burden. It's not a thing anymore. But if you're constantly picking up the weights for somebody else, they never bear that burden. They're not conditioned to it. They don't have any resilience. They're an unproductive member of society. And as this system that is going out of its way to bear the burdens of certain people with certain ideological and political beliefs continues to crumble, what happens when their ability to assuage the fears, meet the needs of this one particular political constituency goes away? Those people are going to throw temper tantrums. People are going to act badly. Where do you find most of those people, Dud? Where do you find most of those people with that certain ideological belief?
It's more so when they are dreamers instead of doers. They'll get lost in this, like, oh, if I could just do this, then I'll be able to accomplish that. So I don't need to accomplish anything. I know I just gotta pull the trigger on this, and then I can go. But then when they're put under pressure and they try and take that step, they fall flat on their face.
See this all the time with people who are idealists, right? They have a good idea and they think their idea has value. I know a lot of young people who came up with a great idea, and they're going to start a company built around the great idea and sell the company that has no assets other than that one individual and that great idea for millions of dollars because they had a great idea. Nobody gives a shit about your good idea if you don't do something with it. If you don't produce something, if you don't turn the good idea into action, it doesn't matter. Oh, you had a good idea? I've had 100 good ideas this morning. They're worthless if I don't actually turn them into something.
Yep, that idea fairy is sprinkling stuff on their wizard hats. and
militia wizard hats.
Oh, yes.
Militia
yes,
wizards, yeah.
And then they never accomplish anything. They always say, oh, well, the worst is they will critique you on what it is that they're doing. Like with, let's talk about Refuge Medical. They'll say that, oh, you should have this in your bag, you should have that in your bag, when they've never even purchased a box of Band-Aids in their life.
Yeah, how many lives have you saved?
Right.
Because 51. We got 51 on this side of the camera. How many people have you trained? Because we got a couple thousand in the last 18 months on this side of the camera. You know, it's a good idea for you should do this, you should do that.
Oh, you should have this on top of that instead of this on top of that. And that'll make it better. Okay, so do it.
Yeah, go for it. Put me out of business. Make a better kit if it's such a good idea, right? It's just fine. Capitalism, baby.
Yep.
The only reason we have the sales that we have is because we're good at what we do. And I don't have to tell you the product works. There's 51 people that are still alive who can testify to the fact that the product works. In fact, we post that stuff on Patreon all the time. The after action reports of each life that's been saved. But the question I was asking is, these people of this certain political ideology, where are they geographically located? Where are all the liberals at?
And bunched up on top of each other in their echo chamber in cities.
High population density areas.
Yep.
Because the higher the population density gets, the more governance is required to manage those people. So you need something, it starts at first, good ideas. We need an ambulance corps. We need a fire department. We need a police station. Now we definitely need a full-time mayor to manage all of that stuff. And there's potholes in that road. We probably need a Department of Public Works. Well, who's going to run the Department of Public Works? We're going to need to hire Jimmy to run, DPW. Well, how are we going to pay for Jimmy? That's going to require a tax hike. Okay, so now we're going to pass some taxes. The water pipe broken, that's DPW. That's another $200,000 we're going to need for that. And then it starts snowballing, where all these public transportation, all these expectations to meet all the needs, air quote needs, of these people in these high population density areas where resources are consumed but not produced. So think about that. When this system fails, and it will, it's just a matter of time. Sir John Glubb, The Fate of Empires, 250 years-ish is how long an empire lasts. When this system fails, and to be clear, I don't want it to. I have children. I want to have grandchildren. I enjoy hanging out on my land, doing what I want to do. I enjoy running the businesses and the ministries that I run. I like my life. I have an incredibly blessed life. I don't want the system to fail. I also don't want to whore with it. But when it fails, what happens in those high population density areas where all the snowflakes have had everything handed to them on a silver platter? And it's the little stuff. It's the psychological effects of the little things. The trash on the side of the road, the homeless people starting to stack up, the street lights not working, the crosswalk lights not working, a lack of police, a lack of firefighters, a lack of EMS. All that stuff starts to stack up, and stack up. These are all stress points, and they're minute stress points that sooner or later become major stress points. And now there's no food, there's very little food, and you can't get enough hours at work, and your rent went up, and your electricity went up. And now, because of that, you can't afford your Netflix subscription, which is the one way you blew off steam at the end of the day. And next thing you know, you're like, you know what? I think I'm a full-blown psychopath now. I'm going to go do something about this. Because when psychopaths do stuff like that, it's because they can't exert control over any other facet of their life. So they have to take control of something or somebody else. And then they act out. Civil unrest. You get enough assholes acting out in the same geographic area, you have widespread civil unrest.
You get enough assholes out there, you'll have to hire a new division called the Poop Patrol. They're just pooping all over the streets.
Or move. Or strategically relocate.
Yep.
I
can't do that.
I piss people off all the time. They're like, but Bear, what about martial law? First of all, martial law where? Here? You're going to deploy a company out here to shut my county road down? Okay, sounds good. When you could use that company somewhere else to shut down a town or a small city? Okay, whatever. But also, don't be where the problem is. Like, step one, there's 4 guys fighting in the parking lot over there. You going to stand there and watch, or you going to go over and get in the middle of it? If it's my guys fighting in the parking lot, they're probably going to be okay. I'm probably going to stand there, and if I need to jump in, I will, but probably not going to need to jump in. But otherwise, I'm a spectator, homie. I'm going to not be where the problem is. So, civil unrest, all that to say, I love that huge rabbit hole, all that to say, as the system continues to degrade, there will be an increase in civil unrest, and these new tax hikes are going to contribute to the degradation of the system. In general, U.S. inflation is already at a 4-decade high, and the economy has shrunk in 2 consecutive quarters, aka the textbook definition, literally, of a recession. On top of that, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has recently said that rate hikes would continue to work to suppress rising prices. Rate hikes, that's going to diminish what they call the velocity of the dollar. AKA people ain't gonna be spending it and lending it. Unfortunately, this will also slow economic growth as loans become harder to obtain. In response to that announcement, market indexes plummeted and stock markets in Asia slipped in response. In other words, just more bad news on multiple fronts for US inflation, the economy, and markets as the powers that be struggle to appease the masses who continue to grow more and more dissatisfied and in some cases irate, pissed off. These are the death throes of an aging empire, run by, asterisk, an aging moron. If you're just like on the fence about prepping, I'd get off the fence and I'd get busy. If you've kind of been in a lull, like it's, you know, especially, I get it, a lot of us have a COVID hangover from prepping, I get it. At first, it's new and exciting. It's kind of sexy. Like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to buy this thing. I'm going to get these ball mason jars and a pressure canner. I'm going to put food in buckets. And sooner or later, it just becomes normal. Like your Overton window for normalcy shifts, and this is just a thing you do now. It's a lifestyle, not a hobby. It's like it's not that special anymore. I firmly believe the window of opportunity to get prepared is closing. A lot of people have pontificated in the past about what happens when they, the big they, don't let us, however you define us, buy and sell. Is it the mark of the beast? Is it the digital dollar? Is it the COVID vaccine? Is it that, what if you can't buy and sell? What if there's nothing to buy? What if your money is so worthless that it has no purchasing power? Weimar Republic. What about that? Anybody thought about that lately? So shifting from consumer mindset to producer mindset, incredibly valuable. And while you still have the opportunity to be consumeristic, to solve problems the American way by whipping out your credit card, you should. I would prefer a debit card. I don't use credit. It's funny. I had to get a background check on something recently, and they're like, you don't have any credit. My businesses have excellent credit. I don't have any personal credit. They're like, why? Like, you have all these businesses, you do all these things. I'm like, I don't use credit. If I want something, I'll just go buy it. And if I don't have the money to buy it, I'm not going to go buy it. I'm going to figure out how to get the money to buy it. So, debit card, check, ACH, greenbacks, silver, trade a goat and some milk for something. Now's the time to do that. I don't think we've seen anything yet when it comes to shortages in the United States of America. The crop outlook for 2023, through the end of 2022 into 23 is terrible. Energy price forecasts are terrible. The inflation forecasts are pretty damn bad. You put all those things together, plus look at what China's doing. China produces most of what's consumed in the United States of America as far as material goods are concerned. The United States produces most of what's consumed as far as food is concerned in China. Probably the primary reason why we haven't had a hot war with China yet. China's falling apart at the seams because of their real estate investment strategy, aka Ponzi schemes. Like, they're literally rolling tanks on their citizens in the streets right now to shut down, civil unrest. Like, and even there's an indicator. Do you want to be in the town square when the tanks come? Because the tanks aren't in the rural villages. Because nobody's rioting in the rural villages, but they are rioting in the cities. Things to think about. That's the brief for today. If you're new here and you found some value in this, you could go ahead and subscribe. We'd appreciate that. We're on the march to 200,000. If you're not new here, you know what to do. Share the show. Links to everything I discussed and the written brief are on Patreon. There is a link in the description of every video and live stream to Patreon. It's $5 per month, and it is not an I love me, you should love me too page. There's way more value at Patreon than there is here on YouTube. I post at a minimum 5 times a week on Patreon, sometimes 15 or 20 times a week on Patreon. The real conversation is over there. The real value is over there. And it is a value exchange. You pay the cover charge of $5 per month. I pour into you. So thank you to the patrons for being the economic engine of the Bear Nation. Now, for the rest of y'all, if you want to jump off when it's time to talk about how to support the show, this is your cue. Beat feet, skedaddle, get out of here. Have a blessed day. Shalom. Exit stage left. For the rest of y'all, we're going to talk about Refuge Medical real quick, Refuge Training, and then, of course, Grindstone Ministries. In the meanwhile, while they're leaving, this is a Helkowerk German 4 3/4 pound felling axe. You see the bit on that? It's not a chopping axe. This is a felling axe. And it works really good for putting trees on the ground. It works really good for limbing. And it is razor sharp. And as you can see, she has a little wear and tear on her because I use my shit. And, you know, you think about Elijah, the prophet of Yah. I have yet 7,000 men who have not bent the knee to Baal. Father, yeah, look at how this thing's balanced. Look at this. This is a work of art. Functional art, this axe. Father, Yah, I'm all alone. I have 7,000 men who have not bent the knee to Baal. Quit your bitching, son, and get busy. Yes, sir. Roger that. What does he do? He calls out Ahab and Jezebel, and he says, hey, meet me up on this mountain. We're going to have a little contest to see whose God is the real God. 400 prophets of Baal show up. And they cry out to Baal to light their offering, and nothing happens. And by the way, Elijah, imbued with the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Yahweh our Elohim, what does he do? He shit talks them. So the next time somebody's like, no Lashon Hara, brother. Yeah, it's on the menu when you're dealing with false prophets, because he says, oh yeah, what is your God on vacation? Is he asleep? Is he taking a nap? Maybe you need to wake him up. And they're over there cutting themselves, spilling their own blood. Nothing. He says, hey, how about you douse my offering with water? Get it sopping wet. Let's do that 3 times. And he prays to Yah, and Yah sends fire down and completely consumes his offering. Then everybody gets the point. Oh, Elijah serves the living God, Yahweh our Elohim. These other guys are just full of shit. And what does he do? What does our imbued with the Holy Spirit, anointed by the creator of the universe, prophet of Yah do? He takes those 400 false prophets down to the Wadi Kidron, where he slays them. He lops their head off with an edged weapon. Interesting. RefugeMedical.com. Made in America, guaranteed forever. 51 lives saved to date. If you break it, I will replace it at no cost to you. If you use the components, the equipment, to save somebody's life, I'll replace them at no cost to you. 4 continents, all branches electively with the U.S. Armed Forces, exceeds military specification. Literally the best first aid kits you can buy on planet Earth. If there's a better one, I'll buy it. There's not. That's why we made our own. Yay, capitalism. Everything's in stock at the store right now. So shout out to our team at RefugeMedical.com. The 20-somethings and you folks that are a little bit older that are there keeping the 20-somethings in line. We appreciate y'all very much. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for doing your job so that I can do mine. Thank you for showing up to work so that people are still alive today. Thank you for showing up to work so that we can earn the revenue that we need to make sure that we are paying our teammates a fair living wage so that we're creating generational wealth and destroying generational curses. Thank you, team. It's in stock. Whatever it is, hey Bear, do you have a refugemedical.com. SOB kits in stock, small of the back, weighs as much as one loaded AR-15 magazine. It's got everything you need for the March algorithm. It's this big. Small your back. War belt, plate carrier, chest rig. Arc kit. It's like the SOB on steroids. This thing's badass. Advanced rip-away kit, right? Boom. Rip it off. Got a little red handle back here you can pull off as well. Pop it open. Shears, wound packing, gauze, pressure bandages, nasopharyngeal airways, high-fin chest seals, S-Mark compression bandage, Sharpie, more chest seals, nasopharyngeal airway, compressed gauze for wound packing, quick clot, soft T, Committee on TCCC recommended windlass tourniquet, not some bullshit rat's tourniquet, a real tourniquet used by real operators in stock. If you want the cool guy colors, multicam, Marpad, OD green, Ranger green, Coyote tan, in stock. Bearfact 3.0s, in stock. It's all there, it's all in stock. I would get them today because I don't know how long that's gonna last. And your promo code is BearNation, which gives you free shipping on everything in the store. And that's not nothing because our shipping costs are going through the roof. So thank you for supporting our American-made small businesses. Who's that? Is that Rat? Let me see him. Of course, Refuge Training, if you don't know how to use your shit, you might as well not have your shit because you're gonna die anyway. So if you need to know how to use your shit, refugetraining.com. where we teach you the fine art of how to not die. Currently, we have classes with some availability in Waco and Dallas. Everything else is sold out. And so if you're in the Texas area or want to fly into the Texas area, look at this monster. Refugetraining.com. This is one of 8 puppies that we have out of our murder dog, Sam. Hi, Rat. This is Rat. He's what, 8 weeks old?
9.
9 weeks old. He's about 20 pounds. At 8 weeks, he was 17.5 pounds. Look at the size of his paws.
Higher.
Higher.
There you go.
Yep. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. Murder pups. I was out in the front yard a week or two ago, and I heard this I heard the sound of shenanigans. And I was like, what am I listening to? I go in the front yard, and 5 of the puppies had gotten out, and 5 of them were destroying a small raccoon. And I was like, well, good job. I don't know what happened here, but good job. This is my emotional support pet. He's the service dog. I was like, good job. They have some murder dog in them. Good job. The next morning, get up out of bed, I come outside. I'm like, oh man, they're over there messing with that raccoon again. I go and look. No, it's another raccoon. I was like, nice. A pack of murder pups. All right, Rat, say bye to the internet.
You can just
Set them on the ground.
come on. Come on.
GrindstoneMinistries.com. If you think it's an abomination that children are raped, sometimes by their own parents, and you'd like to do something about that, or you'd like to support a ministry that does something about that, you can visit grindstoneministries.com or go to the description box on this video or any video or live stream, and you'll find us there, grindstoneministries.com, as well as our online giving portal. We are actively doing stuff to make sure that these abominations do not continue to occur. We're not raising awareness. We're not simply advocating. We're not making high-speed Instagram posts about human trafficking and sex crimes. We're doing shit. And I will continue to do shit until the day that I die, if it means that somebody will no longer be harming the least of these. That is my job. That is what the creator of the universe told me I need to be doing. And I am not going to tell him no. And again, I'm completely unafraid of anybody that thinks they're going to stand in between me and Yah's will. Have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous? No man will stand before you. Yes, sir. Roger that. So praise Yah for good brothers that are willing to stand with me. And praise Yah for y'all who are willing to support us to make sure that this shit does not continue to happen. And it is my goal to work myself out of a job with Grindstone Ministries and Caleb House. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. We have more people in our care than ministries who have been open for decades have in their care. And our building is not built yet. Because the church ain't a building, right? It's not about the building. It's not about what kind of car or truck the pastor drives. It's not about how much sabbatical time per year do you get off. No, it's about being the hands and feet. It's about doing shit. Be not hearers of the word, but doers also. James. And we are doing. And I intend to continue to do for as long as there is breath in my lungs and blood in my body. And I'm gonna say a bad word, so if you have kids around, now it's time to mute the video. Fuck around and find out, homie. Fuck around and find out. I have no love for the enemies of Yahweh or Elohim. Yeshua himself said it would be better if we tied a millstone around your neck and threw you into the ocean than you harm the least of these. So if you'd like to support a millstone or two, grindstoneministries.com. I love y'all. I am so thankful for you. I am humbled that y'all pour into us. When all this is said and done, I can't wait to tell you about all the shit that we've been up to lately. But operational security is a thing. So thank you. Y'all have a blessed day. Shalom.